Well, howdy y'all. It's late spring, which means for the gardener, it's a pretty busy season trying to get the last seeds planted into the ground and getting your transplants into the garden. But today's subject is transplanting. The do's and don'ts, the vegetables that you can and cannot transplant. And then I'm also going to give you 2 tips to prevent transplant shock in your plants. So here's an example of transplanted plants. All these have not been direct sown into this bed here. These are Roma tomatoes, and I have some banana peppers interplanted in here. This is kind of my miscellaneous bed that I had extra plants of. You know, when I first started gardening, I had a problem with transplant shock. Basically what transplant shock is when you transplant the plants, they freak out because they're in a new environment, new soil, maybe not enough moisture or nutrients, and that causes them to be in shock, kind of freak out. This isn't a very good spot that I was just planted into. Not enough nutrients, not enough water, and maybe rougher soil than I'm used to. So I'm gonna have to conserve my energy and just basically stop growing and maybe even droop. And I've had that in the past, but lately I have not had a single case of transplant shock. Actually, they're doing very well. But first, let's take a moment to talk about the plants you should not transplant. Corn, beans of any type, and root vegetables such as carrots and bulbing vegetables. Everything else, there's probably more, but pretty much everything else can be transplanted. So I'm going to show you now the way that I transplant. I have some cayenne and jalapeno peppers that I need to transplant out into the big main garden, and so I'm going to take you guys along with me and show you my ways to prevent transplant shock and to continue to grow nice healthy plants. So here guys, I have my transplants. These are jalapeno, which is going to go in the jalapeno. This is my jalapeno row right here, and then my cayenne is right here. When we transplant this, how can we keep this from transplant shock? I think one of the first tip that I'm going to give you is make sure that they're a little bit dry. Their soil is a little bit dry before you plant them into the ground, because what causes transplant shock is when they are planted in there and you don't water them, or they already have enough water and then their roots go into dry soil. That's not very good for them, because then they see, okay, well, this area that I've just been planted into does not have adequate amount of water. I'm going to have to slow down my growing speed. I'm going to have to kind of conserve everything, so I'm not going to grow as big and maybe even grow limp. Another perfect thing that you could do, which I'm going to do, is when you transplant them, go ahead and put some fertilizer in their hole, in the hole that you're going to be transplanting them into. So I have some organic blood meal and then some organic bone meal. If you're new to gardening, you'll see numbers on the back of the fertilizers. You'll see, 1 number, 2 number, and 3 number. The first number is nitrogen, the second number is phosphorus, and the third number is potassium. So nitrogen is what's going to give you your green leaves. This is what produces your leaves. It's what gives it gives it that dark, rich green color. And then you have your phosphorus, which is what produces your flowers. This also helps with root growth. So when you put bone meal into the ground with it, this is promoting healthy root growth, causing the roots to be able to be strong inside this new soil that they're not used to growing in. All we're going to do here is I'm going to take my jalapenos. So jalapenos are typically spaced out. You can space them out however you want to. Obviously the minimum I think is 12 inches is a foot. So I'm going to go ahead and measure myself out a foot. Okay, and then you're going to just take your bone or your blood meal. This is what's high in nitrogen. This is what's going to make your plants grow pretty speedily and your leaves to be dark green. Just a little bit, not a lot, because you don't want to burn them, because blood meal can burn your plants. And bone meal does not burn your plants. It does still contain a high nitrogen content, but it's higher in potassium. Again, this is going to cause good root growth. This is going to give you also your flowers. Flowers are what we're after, because that's what produces the fruit. So anyway, I'm just going to pop one of these cells out. I'm just going to stick it into the ground. That's all there is to it. So now what we're going to do to prevent the transplant shock is to go ahead and give them a nice drink of water. This is going to allow the plant to see, okay, there is abundant water here, I'm good. That way that you have a lower chance of them going into transplant shock and slowing down growth production. So guys, I'm just going to continue transplanting. I'm just going to speed it up. So here we go. Well guys, this is the result of the transplants. It's been a day now. Usually they go into transplant shock about 24 hours after you've transplanted them. And as you can see here, there's no drooping and they continue to grow strong. So just remember that when you are transplanting, make sure that you put them into even better soil than what they were grown in. This makes them feel comfortable and like, okay, I've been planted in a really good spot. But anyway guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you learned a lot. I hope you guys have a wonderful gardening season this year. And until next time guys, keep swimming upstream.